Hello and welcome to Legalese. My name is Vincent Perryman and I am a local attorney with the law offices of J. Vincent Perryman. Each month, Legalese focuses on a wide range of legal issues and topics. Today's show covers holistic law. With us now is attorney Maureen T. Holland of Holland & Associates, PLLC. Maureen, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted to be here.
Okay, now holistic law, that is something that, most people, they hear, when they think of attorneys, they think of a lot of different things, but holistic is not something that I know I had ever thought of before meeting you. And what is holistic law?
Okay, holistic law is sort of getting away from lawyer as pit bull to lawyer as problem solver. And it primarily involves two things. One is going back to the traditions of legal practice. So historically, lawyers were the counselors, lawyers were the teachers, we were the role models. Mm-hmm. And it also incorporates information from other disciplines, for instance, going to psychology and how to deal with an angry client, or going to the research on apology and how do you incorporate that into problem solving. So we're changing the focus of lawyers as essentially the problem to lawyers who solve problems. And I don't think it's, historically we have been sort of the problem solvers, but perception in the public has been away from that. And this is a concerted effort to change that back.
Okay, yeah, and I guess some of it too is we never really, when we're portrayed on television and other medias, it's the whole thing of you see the court battle where it's a knockout drag out,
yes,
as opposed to all the work that goes in prior to that. And with the holistic law, I mean, that's not a one area of law that it covers, it's just a way of practice, is that right?
That is right. You can be a holistic lawyer and practice any type of law. So for many of us, we're no longer general practice attorneys. So it used to be you went to a lawyer in a small town and that lawyer would handle the divorces, the contracts, the criminal matters. And now many of us have become more specialized in our areas of practice. So I practice primarily in employment law. I represent employees or former employees with the company on the other side or the employer on the other side. And you can practice the holistic law whether you're an employment lawyer who does what I do, or whether you do probate, or whether you are a criminal lawyer. It is really about looking at problem solving first and litigation last, if at all possible. But if you find yourself involved in litigation, as some holistically practicing attorneys do, the idea is to try to be as civil in that practice as you can, to try still throughout the process, even of litigation, to be problem solving rather than just sort of maintaining this adversarial nature of the practice of law, which sort of how it has become historically. So it's a huge difference in that style, but that umbrella, if you will, of holistic law looks at the whole of the problem. That's kind of where it gets its idea from. I started learning about thinking and approaching problems differently by studying some of the work of Patricia Sun, who looked at whole brain thinking, the right brain, the left brain, put it all together. How do you solve a problem, not just in an adversarial way, not just in a rigid way, but in maybe a creative way. And so that sort of has carried over into legal practice, and you can solve problems rather than just litigating.
Okay, so I guess in a typical case, as far as somebody walks through the door to a holistic lawyer, how does the process start?
The process starts really by changing the way that I approach a problem by listening more. So your holistic lawyers are really looking for, how can I solve this problem? And the way in which we usually do that is by trying to figure out what the client needs. So how this is different is when you're trained in law school, what you're generally trained to do is to practice law by learning certain segments of problem solving. And then you're learned to take that into a courtroom if it doesn't get solved by the parties, and the solution is economic. So your focus is money. If you have a problem and you're hurt, and you finally get through the court system, you're going to get money. And that does look at one aspect of problem solving, but it doesn't look at how a lot of people approach problems, which is a lot of times what motivates people to go into the court system or to go to a lawyer has a lot to do with the non-economic factors. They're frustrated, they're angry, they feel that there is a sense of justice they're looking for, something is not working and they feel bad. So holistic law looks at those aspects in addition to just the money. And when you're looking at all of those pieces together, when someone comes in, the first thing you're trying to do is figure out what do they really need, as opposed to what is their position. So position would be, I'm right and they're wrong. That's a position. And that doesn't get you very far. But if you start looking at what do you need, and is there a way for me to help you get those pieces of what you need, then it changes the way you look at the problem. And it changes many of the solutions that become available.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess with that, when you've got somebody that comes in and, initially working through the problem and everything there, as far as, I guess, what are the tools that you're going to use? Is it the traditional mediation, or is it just trying to get them to solve it amongst themselves, or what?
The first thing I do is really focus on the client. So a lot of time is spent listening to the problem. Because many people feel, at least in my experience, that they really want to be heard about their problem. They want to sit down with a trained professional and go from the beginning of their story through all the minor details and the major details through the end of their story. And many people's stories take quite a while to go through. So the first focus is listening. And listening for those needs, listening for what's going on with this person. Is this a limited problem? Is this a bigger problem? So that changes. The holistic lawyer is all about listening. And I know that's a huge complaint that I hear about lawyers traditionally is someone comes to a lawyer and they didn't hear, they didn't listen, the lawyer spoke the whole time. And it is really about changing that. Then, once you have listened to the whole story, that will influence what approach you might take. Because if you find out that really what the person wants is an apology, even if they have a case, even if they have, so for instance, in my world, a disgruntled employee comes to me and says, I feel that my employment situation is wrong. And I listen to it. And what I hear are aspects of a legal case. It doesn't mean that that's the first thing I say. Oh, you have meet the criteria of a lawsuit, and therefore let's go sue. I don't do that. I say, okay, you do have these aspects of a case, you do meet some of these criteria for a lawsuit, but what you've told me is that you would like to solve this through an apology. And then my question to myself is that something I can help this person get? Okay. And that changes the way you look at your clients, because they are not just a source of information and a source of income for you to then sue. It is, how can I service this situation? What skills do I have that I can bring that will help this person solve this problem that has a legal aspect?
And it would seem that probably gives rise to happier clients.
I hope so. It has been my experience. I do charge for my time, for instance, to do consulting. And you would think that after someone has paid their lawyer to consult, that they would be satisfied and done with that relationship. But I often get gifts, personal notes sent to me. Thank you so much for the time you spent, even though I charge for that time.
Yep. But we've got to take a break now. So when we will return, we'll continue our discussion about holistic law. Please stay with us.